Hi guys, welcome. My name is Amanda. For those of you that are new to the channel or here for the first time, for those who've been here before, welcome back, and to friends and family, g'day. So a bit over a week ago, I did an experiment, or started an experiment, which is still ongoing, and it was the avocado experiment. We have named it. Sherbet is the name of the guacamole jar that I vacuum sealed and put into the cupboard in this nook where I'm at, in my canning pantry, and he's been stored in the cupboard in a dark space, reasonably cool compared to the temperature outside, but it is cooler inside, but not refrigerated. And this is what he looks like. Not too bad. There's a slight change in colour, but he's not horrible brown colour that avocado goes to when it's oxidizing because of the enzyme that is created inside the avocado when it's exposed to air, because I've taken the air out. So it hasn't really changed all that much, but I can't tell what's going on inside this jar, whether it's safe to eat. This is one from the refrigerator. Okay. Ever so slightly different colour in the two of them. Okay, so if I didn't have my example that's been kept in the refrigerator, I maybe wouldn't notice that that had changed so much because I'm looking at it every day, versus this one, that I can put them side by side. Putting them side by side, I still wouldn't probably think there was anything wrong with this one, and there may not be anything wrong with it. The problem is that me, myself, personally, have no way of testing what's going on inside this jar. Obviously, there's something going on inside the jar because it's starting to oxidize. But does that mean it's not safe? I don't know. But I'm not going to be one to try to find out either. I'm doing an experiment to see how long it takes for this avocado to change colour. So this one from the refrigerator has been sitting out for a couple of minutes now, so it's no longer minus, whatever that is, 4 degrees in the refrigerator, 3 degrees in the refrigerator. So it's starting to come back to sort of a room-ish temperature, and it'll go back into the refrigerator very soon. So it's now 14 degrees because it is quite a warm day today. This one I'm going to open up. We'll taste it and I'll see whether or not it's okay. So the Australian food standards say specifically when it relates to food that's been vacuum sealed that it needs to be kept in a temperature below 3 degrees or below. Okay, so it's a refrigerator. All right, so the vacuum sealed one that's been in the refrigerator for the past week, I don't have an issue. Right, no issue with eating that. If that had been standard just straight guacamole that had not been vacuum sealed, I highly doubt that it'd still be this colour after 9 days. I'm pretty sure, in fact, I know I wouldn't. Guacamole just doesn't last. Now I've introduced air to it again. I need to seal it back up again in order to put it back in the refrigerator for it to last longer. It's just an experiment that I was doing because we sometimes have a glut of avocados, and avocados can become quite economical to purchase. They can be quite cheap. You can buy them at the end of a season. And it just is interesting to me that I was able to find a recipe and an article from a company that does make these vacuum sealers. They do. And they suggested that it was safe to put it on a shelf and store it in a cool, dark space for onwards and up to a year, which I thought was a little bit odd. But I thought, if that's the case, that would be absolutely amazing. What I do think, though, after reading further with the Australian food standards especially, because I do trust them and several other sources that I have read as well, that keeping it refrigerated and vacuum sealed, possibly, it can last for quite a long period of time. It says extends the shelf life for several months. Again, they've not given a time frame. It just says several months. And so if I was to make guacamole and it was to last in my refrigerator several months when I had excess of it, that would be fantastic. I can freeze it as well, and you can freeze avocado in guacamole, and I do, providing you're using freezer bags and not just standard Ziploc bags. Standard Ziploc lunch type style bags are permeable, so there's still an exchange of gas and air, so the food will still deteriorate even though it's in a refrigerator. It's just a lot slower, and it recommends that vacuum sealed product or frozen avocado, for example, is consumed within a month to 3 months. If I was going to the effort of vacuum sealing or using freezer bags for avocado and taking up space in the freezer, I'd possibly want it to last longer than 3 months if I was doing such a large batch. But doing 3 or 4 jars in the refrigerator is fine if they're going to last a month or so. They're not going to last that long because they're going to get eaten. So it's an interesting experiment, and this one's now vacuum sealed once again. Go back in the refrigerator. So I'll keep an eye on these guys. In a week's time, I'll bring this guy out. I expect he's going to look an awful lot different in a week's time, especially now our temperatures are starting to warm up here. So that's the experiment update up until now. And I have a lot of beef. So I have been shopping because beef is on sale at a local chain of supermarkets. Not the duopoly, luckily, but one of the local independent stores. And so I've picked up 2 very large beefs that I am going to be processing as well with the help of my granddaughter later on, but mostly with me because it's a sharp knife. So I'm going to be velveting some beef soon, but I'll post this one first and then I will do a beef one later on when I go through all of Mum's recipes, especially the velveting. And that one's actually in one of my cookbooks, and I will get the date out when we first started velveting, just so that everybody is aware of the transparency of where the idea came from. It's probably a very well-known thing, but strangely enough, I mentioned it to my auntie when we went and bought the beef, and she said she had never heard of that technique before. So possibly not everybody knows to velvet some beef in order to make a tougher cut of meat, absolutely soft and tender, and much easier to consume. So that's what we'll be doing later on. Catch up with you then, if that's of interest to you. If not, then thanks very much for joining me today. Bye now.